In a tale that seems torn from a dramatic thriller, the life of Ryan Carter Boston, a bright and ambitious young lawyer, intersects tragically with China Hovers, marking a descent into a chilling narrative of obsession and murder.
I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
This saga not only unravels the complexities of a troubled relationship,
we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder,
but also opens a window into the darker aspects of human behavior, love, and desperation. As we delve into Ryan's background, a picture of a life full of promise yet tragically cut short emerges. Background of Ryan Carter Boston. Ryan Carter Boston was born on December 30th, 1982 in Fort Michael, Kentucky, into a family soon to be marked by separation. His parents, Elisa and Jake Boston, divorced during his early childhood. However, the divorce did not sever the bond between Ryan and his father, Jake, who remained an influential figure in his life. Later, Elisa remarried Peter Carter, who became a second father to Ryan, nurturing a bond so strong that Ryan eventually adopted Carter as his middle name. Ryan's childhood was characterized by stability and care despite the familial changes. He grew up with three half-sisters, Allison, Catherine, and Elizabeth Carter, all of whom shared a close-knit bond. His early education at Blessed Sacrament School in Kentucky laid the foundation for his academic excellence. This intellectual curiosity led him to international education experiences, first in the Philippines at the Manila International School and later in Switzerland at the International School of Geneva. Upon his return to the United States, Ryan pursued higher education at Indiana University, showcasing his academic versatility by obtaining a triple major in history, geography, and science. His academic journey was not just a testament to his intellectual prowess, but also an indicator of his future ambitions in the field of politics. After college, Ryan embarked on a career in law, a path well trodden in his family. His grandfather, James Boston Sr., had a distinguished 54-year career in law, and his uncle, James Boston Jr., was also a respected lawyer. Ryan followed in their footsteps, becoming an emerging young lawyer in Cincinnati, Ohio, specializing in criminal and personal injury cases. What set Ryan apart in his professional life was his commitment to justice, especially for those with limited resources. He was not just a lawyer to his clients. He established personal relationships with them, earning their trust and admiration. His colleagues recognized Ryan not only for his brilliant legal mind, but also for his affable nature. He was described as handsome, with a sense of humor that was sometimes innocent and silly. Beyond his professional life, Ryan had a passion for guns. He was a registered owner of several firearms and a firm believer in responsible gun usage as a means to a safer society. His apartment, where his professional and personal life intersected, housed both his collection of ties and his firearms. The entry of China hovers into Ryan's life. In the spring of 2011, the life of Ryan Carter Boston took a significant turn with the entry of China Hovers, a young woman who would eventually become a central figure in a saga of passion, obsession, and tragedy. This chapter in Ryan's life began innocuously, rooted in the digital realms of social media, but would soon spiral into a complex narrative that highlighted the fine line between love and obsession. China Hovers, a strikingly beautiful 19-year-old, caught Ryan's attention through Facebook. At this juncture, Ryan was recovering from his breakup with Lawrence and probably wasn't actively seeking a serious relationship. However, the allure of China, who was a friend of Ryan's adoptive cousin, was irresistible. Their online interaction started with Ryan, then 28, liking provocative photos of China and progressed to direct messages. This online flirtation soon blossomed into a real-world connection. China, born on April 8, 1991, was an academically accomplished young woman. She had received numerous awards for academic excellence, including in music and theater. Described by her friends as a genius who always excelled in school, she completed her high school at Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Lexington, maintaining an impressive academic record. China then went on to study psychology at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, graduating summa cum laude in just 3 years, and was pursuing a master's degree in school counseling. According to some sources, she also worked part-time as a model, a testament to her multifaceted talents. The relationship between Ryan and China started off like any other, filled with the excitement and passion of a new connection. They seemed perfect for each other. Ryan, a successful and attractive lawyer, and China, a beautiful and intelligent young woman. They shared a life that many would envy, a comfortable apartment, pet dogs, and a seemingly bright future ahead. However, cracks soon began to appear in this idyllic facade. By 2011, their relationship had hit rocky waters. The reasons behind their turbulent relationship remained speculative, but it was evident that China's behavior began to change dramatically. Her affection for Ryan bordered on obsession, manifesting in ways that began to suffocate Ryan. He felt overwhelmed by her constant need for attention and her inability to give him space. China's behavior raised red flags, but Ryan, perhaps due to his compassionate nature or hope for improvement, found it difficult to sever ties completely. Over the next 18 months, their relationship was best described as on again, off again. Despite the evident problems, Ryan found it hard to make a definitive break. Friends of Ryan noticed China's obsessive behavior. She constantly sought validation, asking neighbors if she was prettier than Ryan's ex-girlfriend and showing up unannounced at his apartment. She had even obtained a key to his place early in the relationship, under the pretense of convenience, which she used to enter his apartment at will. China's relentless pursuit of Ryan bordered on harassment. She inundated him with messages throughout the day and often turned up at his office uninvited. This behavior was not only noticed by Ryan, but also by his colleagues and friends. They bore witness to the extent of China's obsession, often feeling helpless as Ryan struggled to manage the situation. Amidst this tumultuous relationship, Ryan's career was also taking a demanding turn. He opened his own law firm in 2012, which required his undivided attention and dedication. Additionally, he faced significant stress due to problems with a business partner. The combination of professional stress and the emotional turmoil of his relationship with China began to take a toll on his well-being. Despite the clear signs of an unhealthy relationship, Ryan's inherent kindness and perhaps his reluctance to hurt China made it difficult for him to make a clean break. He found himself trapped in a cycle of ending and restarting the relationship, each cycle further entangling him in China's web of obsession. The relationship's downfall. The relationship between Ryan Carter Boston and China Hovers, which had started with a spark of online flirtation, gradually descended into a tumultuous and toxic affair, marked by obsession and emotional turmoil. This phase of their relationship, characterized by a constant push and pull, would eventually spiral into a tragic narrative that highlighted the darker aspects of love and possession. As 2011 transitioned into 2012, the relationship between Ryan and China became increasingly strained. The initial excitement and charm had given way to a pattern of breakups and reconciliations, each cycle more draining than the last. China's behavior, which had initially seemed like mere infatuation, began to manifest as an intense obsession that overwhelmed Ryan. China's obsession with Ryan was evident in her constant need for his attention and validation. She inundated him with text messages and phone calls, and her presence became a constant in his life, even when unwelcome. Her actions bordered on harassment, as she sought to maintain a grip on the relationship, refusing to accept Ryan's attempts to create distance. This pattern of behavior was not only exhausting for Ryan, but also began to impact his professional life, as China's frequent unannounced visits to his office and apartment disrupted his work. Ryan, known for his compassionate nature, found himself in a dilemma. On the one hand, he cared for China and did not want to hurt her. On the other, he was increasingly aware of the toxicity of their relationship. His friends and colleagues noticed the toll the relationship was taking on him. They saw Ryan, a once vibrant and enthusiastic individual, becoming weary and drained. Despite the evident problems, the relationship continued, albeit intermittently. The cycle of breaking up and getting back together became a pattern, each reunion fueled by a mix of hope and a reluctance to let go. However, the dynamic between Ryan and China was changing. The more Ryan tried to pull away, the more China tightened her grip, her behavior becoming increasingly erratic and controlling. China's obsession reached new heights as she began to exhibit stalker-like behavior. She kept close tabs on Ryan's movements, and her jealousy and paranoia became more pronounced. She was constantly comparing herself to Ryan's ex-girlfriend and would often question Ryan's commitment to their relationship. Her need for reassurance was unending, and her fear of losing Ryan led her to extreme measures to keep him in her life. In an attempt to regain some control over his life, Ryan began to set boundaries, but China refused to respect them. She would often show up at his apartment uninvited and refuse to leave. On one occasion, Ryan had to physically remove her from his apartment, an act that would have signaled the end of most relationships. However, China's response was not one of reflection, but rather of increased determination to hold on to the relationship. The situation escalated as China's behavior became more intrusive and disturbing. She hacked into Ryan's Facebook account to monitor his interactions with other women, further invading his privacy. Her actions were not just a violation of trust, but also an indication of her deep-seated insecurities and her inability to cope with the idea of losing Ryan. As 2012 progressed, Ryan's personal and professional life began to suffer under the weight of the relationship. His law firm, which required his full attention, was being overshadowed by the constant drama in his personal life. The stress of managing a new business, coupled with the emotional strain of his relationship with China, was becoming unsustainable. The night of the crime. The culmination of the tumultuous relationship between Ryan Carter Boston and China Hovers occurred on a fateful night in October 2012, a night that would forever alter the course of many lives and end in a harrowing tragedy. This night was not just the end point of a deteriorating relationship, but also a chilling testament to how obsession and uncontrolled emotions can lead to irreversible consequences. The day began like any other for Ryan, but with an undercurrent of anticipation for an event planned later that evening. He was scheduled to meet Audrey Bolt, Miss Ohio 2012, for a date. This meeting was significant, not just as a potential new beginning for Ryan, but also as a definitive end to his turbulent relationship with China. Ryan had met Audrey through Facebook, similar to how he had connected with China. They had been communicating for some time, and finally, they decided to meet in person. On the evening of October 12th, Ryan and China watched the vice presidential debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan at Ryan's parents' house. Unbeknownst to China, Ryan had plans to meet Audrey the following day, marking a step towards moving on from his strained relationship with China. The debate viewing was an ordinary event, but the underlying tensions between Ryan and China were palpable. After the debate, Ryan and China returned to his apartment. What transpired there would become the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. At some point during the evening, a heated argument ensued between Ryan and China. The exact details of this argument remain unclear, but it revolved around the state of their relationship and Ryan's desire to end it. According to China's later statements, the argument escalated to physical violence, allegations that were contested and remain unproven. What is known is that at some point during this confrontation, China shot Ryan multiple times, leading to his tragic death. The weapon used in the crime was one of Ryan's own guns, which he legally owned and kept in his apartment. China's actions following the shooting were a mix of panic and confusion. In a state of shock and with a clouded mind, she called her mother, Sharon Hoovers, in the early hours of the morning, expressing her distress and the gravity of the situation. Sharon drove approximately 130 kilometers to Ryan's apartment, arriving in the early morning hours of October 13th. Upon Sharon's arrival, she found a chaotic and devastating scene. Ryan lay lifeless in his apartment, and China was in a state of extreme agitation and distress. Instead of immediately contacting the authorities, China and her mother remained at the scene for an extended period, a decision that would later be scrutinized during the investigation and trial. Eventually, China called 911 to report the incident, but not immediately after the shooting. The delay in contacting emergency services was later used against China, as it suggested a lack of immediate remorse or concern for Ryan's well-being. During the 911 call, China's demeanor and statements were erratic, further adding to the suspicion surrounding her actions. When the police arrived at Ryan's apartment, they found a scene that looked like it came straight out of a crime drama. Ryan's lifeless body lay on the floor, and China was taken into custody without resistance. The apartment, once a symbol of Ryan's success and independence, had become a crime scene, marked by the tragic end of a life full of promise and potential. The murder and immediate aftermath. The tragic death of Ryan Carter Boston on that fateful October night in 2012 marked the beginning of a complex and heart-wrenching aftermath that would captivate and horrify the public. The immediate hours following the murder were a blend of chaos, disbelief, and the stark reality of a life violently taken. After China Hovers made the 911 call, law enforcement quickly arrived at Ryan's apartment. They were confronted with a scene of profound tragedy. Ryan's lifeless body lay on the floor, a victim of multiple gunshot wounds. The apartment, once a symbol of Ryan's aspirations and personal space, was now a crime scene, cordoned off with yellow tape and flashing police lights, a stark contrast to the life of order and ambition Ryan had led. China, in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, exhibited a complex mix of emotions. Her behavior was erratic and unpredictable. At times, she appeared deeply distraught, while at other moments, she seemed oddly detached from the gravity of the situation. This behavior continued as she was taken into police custody and throughout the initial phases of the investigation. As the news of the murder spread, it sent shockwaves through the community and amongst those who knew Ryan and China. Friends, family, and colleagues struggled to comprehend the reality of the situation. For those who knew Ryan, the ambitious, kind-hearted lawyer with a promising future, the news was a devastating blow. Many were left to question how a relationship that once held so much promise could end in such a horrific manner. The investigation into the murder began immediately, with detectives seeking to piece together the events leading up to Ryan's death. The focus was on understanding the dynamics of Ryan and China's relationship and what could have driven China to commit such a violent act. The police scrutinized every detail, from the history of their relationship to the events of the night of the murder. China's interrogation by the police was a critical part of this investigation. During the interrogation, she provided her account of the events leading up to the shooting. However, her version of events raised more questions than answers. She claimed self-defense, alleging physical abuse at the hands of Ryan, accusations that were contested and not corroborated by evidence. Her behavior during the interrogation, at times calm and composed, at other times emotional and erratic, added to the complexities of the case. The autopsy of Ryan's body was another critical piece of the investigation. It provided key forensic evidence that would later play a significant role in the trial. The autopsy confirmed multiple gunshot wounds as the cause of death and helped to reconstruct the sequence of events that led to Ryan's death. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that the case was anything but straightforward. The prosecution and defense would later present vastly different interpretations of the events leading up to Ryan's death, each painting a different picture of the relationship between Ryan and China. In the days following the murder, Ryan's family and friends were left to mourn a life cut tragically short. Ryan, who had been a source of pride and joy for his family, was now a memory, his potential and future brutally extinguished. The community grappled with the loss, trying to make sense of how such a promising young man could meet such a tragic end. The trial and conviction. The trial of China Hovers for the murder of Ryan Carter Boston was a high-profile case that gripped the community and the media with its dramatic narrative. The legal proceedings, which unfolded over the course of several months, were marked by intense emotions, complex legal arguments, and a deep dive into the tumultuous relationship between China and Ryan. As the trial commenced, the prosecution presented a case built on a narrative of obsession and control. They painted a picture of China as an individual whose infatuation with Ryan had spiraled into dangerous obsession. The prosecution argued that China's actions on the night of the murder were not those of self-defense, as she claimed, but rather the culmination of a pattern of possessive and controlling behavior. Key to their argument was the forensic evidence from the crime scene and the autopsy report, which contradicted China's account of the events leading to Ryan's death. The prosecution brought forward witnesses who testified about the nature of the relationship between Ryan and China. Colleagues and friends of Ryan described the relationship as troubled and recounted instances where China's behavior had been concerning. They painted a picture of Ryan as a man trying to extricate himself from a toxic relationship, countering the narrative that China had been the victim of abuse. The defense, on the other hand, sought to frame China as a victim of an abusive relationship. They argued that the shooting was a tragic outcome of an ongoing pattern of abuse at the hands of Ryan. The defense pointed to China's emotional and psychological state, arguing that she had acted in a moment of fear and desperation. They presented evidence and testimony aimed at supporting the claim of self-defense, including accounts of China's behavior and state of mind before and after the incident. China herself took the stand, providing her account of the events and the nature of her relationship with Ryan. Her testimony was emotional and at times contradictory, which only added to the complexities of the case. She described a relationship fraught with emotional abuse and fear, painting a very different picture of Ryan than the one presented by the prosecution. The trial was a battle not just of legal arguments, but also of narratives. On one side was the portrayal of a troubled but nonviolent relationship that ended in a tragic act of self-defense. On the other was a depiction of a disturbed and obsessive individual who had resorted to murder as a means of exerting ultimate control over her partner. As the trial progressed, the jury was presented with a plethora of evidence, including text messages, emails, and witness testimonies. These pieces of evidence provided insights into the dynamics of Ryan and China's relationship, offering a glimpse into the emotional landscape that had defined their time together. The turning point in the trial came with the presentation of forensic evidence. The trajectory and number of the gunshot wounds, as detailed in the autopsy report, played a crucial role in challenging the defense's narrative of self-defense. The evidence suggested a scenario that was inconsistent with China's account of the events leading to Ryan's death. After weeks of testimony and meticulous examination of evidence, the case was handed over to the jury for deliberation. The decision would come down to whose narrative the jury found more compelling and credible. Was China a victim or the perpetrator of a premeditated murder? Psychological analysis of China hovers. The trial and subsequent conviction of China Hovers in the murder of Ryan Carter Boston brought forth numerous questions about her psychological state. To understand the motives and mindset behind her actions, a comprehensive psychological analysis was conducted, delving into her background, behavior, and mental health. Experts in forensic psychology were brought in to assess China's psychological profile. This analysis was crucial in trying to unravel the complex tapestry of emotions and mental states that led to the tragic night. These experts examined various aspects of China's life, including her upbringing, her academic and social history, her relationship with Ryan, and her behavior before and after the crime. One significant aspect that emerged was China's background. Growing up, China had been an exceptional student, known for her intelligence and academic prowess. However, experts pointed out that academic excellence and emotional intelligence do not necessarily correlate. They suggested that while China excelled academically, she may have struggled with emotional regulation and interpersonal relationships. The psychological analysis also focused on the nature of China and Ryan's relationship. The experts examined the dynamics of their interactions, communication patterns, and China's behavior within the relationship. They found evidence of obsessive tendencies in her actions and an intense fear of abandonment. This fear, they speculated, could have stemmed from deeper, unresolved issues, possibly relating to her self-esteem or past experiences in her life. Another critical aspect of the analysis was China's behavior during the relationship's decline. The experts noted her increasing attempts to control and monitor Ryan's activities, which they attributed to her growing insecurity and desperation to maintain the relationship. This behavior escalated to the point of China exhibiting stalking-like tendencies, indicative of a more significant psychological issue. The experts also delved into China's actions and demeanor following the murder. Her behavior during the interrogation, her interactions with law enforcement, and her conduct during the trial were all analyzed. The psychologists noted a range of emotions and behaviors, from moments of apparent remorse and distress to instances of detachment and indifference. This variability in behavior suggested underlying psychological complexities that might have influenced her actions on the night of the murder. China's mental health at the time of the crime was a key focus of the analysis. The defense argued that she was in a state of heightened emotional distress, which led to a temporary loss of control, a critical point in their argument for self-defense. However, the prosecution challenged this view, suggesting that her actions were premeditated and indicative of a more manipulative and calculating mindset. The psychological experts examined the possibility of mental illness or personality disorders that could have influenced China's behavior. While there was no consensus on a specific diagnosis, some suggested traits consistent with borderline personality disorder, such as intense fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, and impulsive actions. However, establishing a definitive diagnosis in a forensic setting is complex and often contentious.